go ahead and start just because this takes a full minute for the names to scroll of the American soldiers alone who died on a helicopter that day, August 6th. This morning, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here. Just even the school for having me and letting me tell Aaron's story. Today I want to talk to you about three things. I want to talk to you about a man, my son, Aaron Vaughn. I want to talk to you about a mission that was known as Extortion 17. And I want to talk to you about a legacy, the things I believe Aaron would say to you if he were here today. First, about Aaron, though. Aaron was, you can see he was a cut-up. He was always doing funny things. We raised him on a small farm in a small town in West Tennessee. He grew up doing all the normal things that little boys like to do. You know, he rode four-wheelers, he liked to fish, he liked to hunt. He played baseball, basketball. As he got older, he became quite an accomplished football player. He loved aggravating his sister, and like most of you boys who have younger sisters, he loved doing anything he could that would put their life right on the edge of peril, but, you know, get away with it. When he was a junior in high school, we moved to South Florida. That was in 1998. And then he took up different hobbies. And I like to tell these things about him because I want him to be a real person to you before we talk about the rest of the things we're going to discuss today. When he got to Florida, of course, he took up surfing with the water. And he found another really, really distinct thing about South Florida. There were lots of golf courses, so he bought himself an air horn. And one of his favorite pastimes on Saturday was to go hide in the bushes at the golf courses, you know, blow the air horn right as they were taking their swing. So that was like the best thing in the world to do about South Florida. He was mischievous. He loved to laugh. You can see, that's why I put the videos in of him laughing. He was always laughing, and he loved to make us laugh. He was a typical young man. He was just like any of you. But there was something different about Aaron. He knew early on in his life that he had been created for a purpose, that there was something greater that he was supposed to do than just get by or follow after meaningless pursuits. He knew this because early on in his life, he found a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And he honestly felt like there was a calling on his life to go out and make a difference in this great big world. Early on, and we have a slideshow going, probably before he was 7 or 8 years old, he started telling everyone who would listen that he was going to be a Navy SEAL. Not that he wanted to be, but that he was going to be a Navy SEAL. And you can see by the picture why that made people giggle, you know. He didn't have the stature of a Navy SEAL at that age, but he alone knew that inside that young, awkward body, a warrior was being formed. Those of us around him couldn't see it, but God could see it, and Aaron could see it. So when he came home on his 21st birthday and told us that he was going to join the SEAL Challenge program, it was really no surprise to us. We knew the odds were huge, but we knew that God was bigger, and we knew that if that's what God wanted Aaron to do, that's what Aaron would do. We felt proud of him that he'd followed through on the calling he'd had since he was a young boy. And so he went on and joined the SEAL Challenge program, and he absolutely made it. He graduated with Bud's Class 248, which began with well over 100 people. I don't want to misquote this, but I believe that there were about 150 men that started that class. And by the time Hell Week was over in first phase, there were 27 left. And then more dropped out over the following 2 phases. And by the time that class graduated, I think I'm correct in saying there were only 7 of those original men who went through. And Aaron didn't just get through, he actually made it to a very esteemed list out in Coronado, California called the First Time Every Time Wall. And that's a picture of Aaron at the Frog, and you can see how skinny he is. That's when Bud's was over, and it's a pretty rough training. But what makes this story so compelling to me and shows you even more what a big God we serve is that Aaron did all of this without an ACL in his left knee. During his senior year of high school, he tore his ACL in a football injury, and after 2 failed surgeries was told that he could never play sports again. But when Aaron decided that he was going to be a SEAL, he put all that in the back of his mind. He had to make some decisions. He couldn't even tell the Navy that he didn't have an ACL, or they would not have let him join the program. So he fibbed about it, didn't put it on his paperwork, and he began this training program of building the muscles around his knee to stabilize it without the ACL. And as Aaron and I talked through the years, we always acknowledged together that he absolutely had a call on his life and that God alone had made him a Navy SEAL. Aaron was so humbled at that thought. So the next slide is just Aaron in the teens. He was a lead breacher, and so he blew up doors and things like that, and he did a lot of close quarter combat. But he thrived for many years on SEAL Team 1 on the West Coast, excelling every step of the way. Aaron would never have bragged about himself. Heroes never do. But we were told after his death by many of his commanders and peers that Aaron was one of the best operators that had ever come through the teams. There's no greater compliment that you can pay a team guy than to say he's a solid operator, and much more than that was spoken of our son. On his very first deployment, on this next slide, you'll see he met the love of his life. That's Kimberly, his widow. Kimberly was a Redskins cheerleader and was on a USO tour in Guam, of all things, and they met one night at one of her shows. It was love at first sight, and to make a long story short, 2 years later they were married. 16 months after that, Kimberly gave birth to their first son, Reagan, who's now 2 years old, and life was good. In 2010, they packed up all their belongings and moved from the West Coast to the East Coast, where after many months of the most rigorous training known in the history of the military, Aaron earned a spot in the most elite group of warriors in the history of the world, which was on SEAL Team 6. The teams call it DevGru, or Development Group. On June 3rd of this past year, life got even better, and Aaron and Kimberly welcomed Catherine Chamberlain Vaughn into the world, their little girl. Their family was complete. They were excited. We went out to see them right after she was born, which was just a couple, 5 or 6 days before Aaron left on his deployment. 3 weeks after Chamberlain's birth, Aaron took off for what he called the deployment he'd been waiting for his entire life, his first deployment as an official member of DevGru. He kissed his beautiful wife and his 2 precious babies goodbye that morning, none of them having any idea that they would never see each other again. Aaron would never come home. You may wonder why I'm telling you such tender and intimate details about his personal life. And it's because I want you today to stop and ponder in your hearts the fact that every single man or woman who has ever laced up a pair of combat boots has said goodbye to people who love them, and to people they love, knowing, all of them knowing, they may never see each other again.